Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and it is like 12:15 a.m. after the evening of the Cybertruck unveil, and I bumped into an old colleague, this is Ryan McCaffrey, who we used to work together over in the video games business.
Yes,
you
indeed.
used to be at OXM, now you're at IGN, but people might most know you from your very successful podcast.
Well, in this context,
In this
right?
context.
In the Tesla context,
Yeah.
here we are. Ride the lightning.
Ride the Lightning is your podcast. You've had congratulations, by the way, on
Thanks,
all
it's
the
been
success.
fun. Yeah, it's been super fun to just cover this. It's like covering video games in that there's just something new and fun literally every week with this company. It's wild.
And so much speculation, so many teases, and video games are a perfect analog because what was shown today looked like it came out of a video game, like Cyberpunk 2077.
You could not be more accurate. Yeah, I mean that's exactly correct. It's Elon promised it would be a polarizing thing that like we'd never seen in a regular car before. That it came straight out of Blade Runner, and it looks like it came literally off the Blade Runner set.
I mean, you could list all the like 80s movies that this kind of angular Cybertruck references or kind of acknowledges. From the DeLorean, which you had a DeLorean, you drove it for a very long time.
I had that car for 12 years. So what's wild is I feel like the spirit of DeLorean Motor Company, which died 40 years ago, has been absorbed into, it's like Tesla's carrying it on because the Model X has the gull-wing doors, and now the Cybertruck is a stainless steel body. It's awesome. I love that part of it.
So let's run through some of the highlights, details of the car, right? It is a pickup truck, 4 doors, 6-seater, which is interesting. 3 in the front, so the center console is a seat that folds down. It has a 6.5-foot bed for the pickup truck equivalent, but because there's a cover that covers the back, there's no actual rear view mirrors on either the side on this model or even in the center.
It remains, of course, the next generation Roadster, which is, again, also not yet on the road, also does not have side view mirrors. In that car's case, it's for aerodynamic reasons. They're trying to eke every ounce of speed and drag coefficient out of it that they can. So the American government, I know some places in Europe, but we've got to catch up here. So we'll see if the legislation has caught up by the time Roadster and Cybertruck are actually ready to hit the road. Otherwise, they're going to have to put mirrors on it, which just isn't going to work with this thing.
Yeah.
You can't put... What are they going to look like? They're just going to look out of place no matter what.
I mean, I think they're betting on autonomous driving by the time this comes out, at least for freeways, and that's why the rear view mirror in the center is a video display. It looks like it's very high refresh rate. It doesn't look like it does eye tracking for like parallax, but it looks like, it's a rear view camera that's always
I think,
on.
Doesn't the Chevy Bolt have something similar to that?
It has something you can switch into a display. Yeah,
which I think is super cool.
Yeah, and there are obviously UI and user experience things that they'll figure out. Speaking of the dash, it is 17-inch, like the Model 3. With a
little bigger. The Model 3 is 15, so
right.
17-inch, a little bigger in this car for a much bigger vehicle. Makes a ton of sense.
And in this pre-production version that we were able to test ride in, it looks like it's a new UI.
Yeah, and it looks really slick too. Like I wonder if this is just something that the design team's playing around with, or if this is in some way, shape, or form, either a little or a lot, a sneak preview of version 11 that we'll probably get in about a year from now, because Tesla, like Apple, does kind of yearly major OS releases.
Big, long rumored refresh for S and X, bringing it to something more like the 3. Very minimal information on the left side and the bottom. Big graphic, like 3D graphics for navigation on the center. It was in like a dark mode, obviously, because it was at night. But it's very like Model 3, but the next version.
Yeah, and no signal stalks in this car. So you select the gear, park, reverse, neutral, drive by touching the screen, which I think that's great, we can get rid of that. But I don't know how it's going to work for autopilot. How are you going to turn on autopilot and turn it off when you want it off? And B, what about turn signals? How are you going to activate your turn signals? So that remains to be seen.
Right. Well, what do the turn signals even look like? Because the back is
Very true.
one long LED, red LED, just like the front has the long strip of this bright light, white light. Very minimal in terms of controls, very reminiscent of the new Roadster in terms of the steering wheel.
Yeah, it's sort of the Roadsters. It's like a steering yoke, but it's all carbon fiber. and like it's very kind of race car looking. This, the steering yoke in this, to me looked like if the Roadster yoke and the Model 3 steering wheel had a baby. Because it kind of had scroll wheels on it, and it kind of had a little bit of more of a Model 3 wheel look to it, but in yoke form.
Right. And I got to ride in the back middle seat.
Me too.
It's very spacious, like a lot of headroom is what my takeaway was.
And a ton of headroom in the first row, because the way that slope glass, it peaks over the first row, and then it's starting to slope down. So taller people will want to ride in the front, but yeah, still plenty of headroom.
And
I mean, neither you or I are tall.
Right, exactly. Right. They were saying the 6-foot driver would have no problem,
that seemed right.
riding in there. And also massive piece of glass above the passenger seats.
Yeah, for me, I don't know about how you felt, but as Cyberpunk and Blade Runner as the outside looks, I actually think the interior felt and looked even more Cyberpunk, but. And I think I like the interior of this thing even more than I like the exterior. The interior I think is gorgeous, and that, like you said, the just two huge pieces of glass, and it's very spacious and wide, and we haven't yet talked about the dash.
Yeah,
is some sort of this is unconfirmed, but I asked what it was. The driver said, "Oh, it's something special." He either didn't know or didn't say. But then I'm seeing another report from someone else that's here that says it's some sort of paper-based thing. So I don't know if that's true. I don't want to spread hearsay, but it looked like a marble sink from a very high-end hotel bathroom.
I think that's a good analogy, the high-end hotel kitchen countertop, because while it's not granite or actual marble, and that someone was able to confirm that for me, it is porous. So some type of new material that has, and just like the Model 3 has the wood, that's where they want texture.
Yes.
Right? In that dash part. The rest of it was the kind of the suede-ish material.
Yeah, the synthetic leather, vegan leather. They're not going to introduce any animal products back into this, so it's all synthetic, I'm sure. But yeah, the seats felt fine. I mean, we were both in the middle seat, so that's kind of hard to judge. But
yeah, and the back of the front seats did inherit some of that low poly look. Now, I think my suspicion is that may not last. Just like when they showed the Model X, they had the real shiny, bucket seats, and that could have just been for the pre-production model. All this stuff, everything is subject to refinement and change.
Yeah. I mean, they've got 2 years before this thing hits the road, and it inevitably will undergo some tweaks and changes. I mean, I guess are the tires custom, because they match the pattern, match those proprietary wheels. So, I mean, there's a lot that remains to be seen on this thing, but the price, way less than I thought.
I think that was the big surprise, right? $39,000 for the base model, which is single motor. 250 miles. It goes up to 500, which is the tri-motor. When that's a big question, because one we wrote in was the dual motor.
Yes.
I think they're still figuring out what does the third motor, how do they integrate that?
Well, they're still working. That's presumably it's of at least a variation of the plaid chassis and interface that's being tested at the Nürburgring with the Model S now. And that's the test bed for the Roadster, and then presumably some version of it will go into the tri-motor high-end version of the Cybertruck as well.
Which is why the highest SKU here is going to ship the latest in 2022.
Which is the opposite of what Tesla usually does. They usually do the most expensive one first for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and so right now you can put a down payment of $100 for the 39,000 model. They hope to get them in production by end of 2021.
Which in Tesla time means probably, spring 2022 at the earliest. But the thing I've learned over the years about Tesla is they may not be good about hitting deadlines the way they say, production deadlines, but everything that Elon said they're going to do, I can almost guarantee you, history tells us now, they're going to do it. They have never really dumbed something down. The production car is almost always better than what the prototype was. It was true with the S. It was true with the X, other than the lack of total fold down second row seats. And arguably my performance Model 3 is better than the Model 3 Alpha prototype that I rode in here 3 years ago.
And we don't know what the landscape's going to look like 3 years from now. Just this week, we had electric cars announced from Ford, from Volkswagen, and there's lots going to be, competition from Audi, from other high-end car makers, and of course, traditional car makers. turning to electric vehicles for even like trucks. So
Yeah.
we don't know by the time 2021 comes around. I know the design is controversial. I think they're leaning totally into it.
Yeah.
And that is their bold decision. It is going to be a creative risk, but that's Tesla.
That's Elon. Yeah, Elon's gonna do. He's not afraid. Like this car, for better or for worse, would never get made at any other company. I'm very confident in saying that. There's just no way it would have been rejected while it was on paper.
I also want to say that they had a VR demo here, which was interesting. And I talked to some engineers. They made it in 2 weeks, this demo, and does use the same CAD models that the design team used for the actual Cybertruck. So they don't know if they can release that to the outside world because it would have the same assets for people to kind of ape their...
They had that for here at the Model Y unveiling too, and they never released that, so I wouldn't get my hopes up.
Yeah, but it was neat to kind of be in there and kind of see the whole thing virtually, and it's all very high tech, VR, electric cars.
Yes.
You got Blade Runner props. They really went all out with this event. Ryan, thank you so much for chatting with me afterward. I know it's so late, but people should definitely check out your podcast, Ride the Lightning.
Thank you kindly.
The website is just...
You can find it on any major podcast service. Just search Ride the Lightning Tesla. On episode 200, which was a few months ago, I had a 1-hour interview with Elon Musk. So that's as good a place to start as any if you want to check out my podcast.
Awesome. And I'm sure we'll have much more to talk about and think about with the Cybertruck. This is literally hours after the unveil. Thank you again, Ryan. Thank you all there for watching, and see you next time.